governor of New York wants the state's Indian Point nuclear power plant shut down after a leak of the radioactive isotope tritium contaminated groundwater. If tritium enters the soil or water surrounding the plant, it can easily contaminate the food chain as it's carried by water molecules. The effects are potentially deadly as it concentrates in blood cells and DNA, which could lead to mutations and cancer.
Before the 1986 catastrophe in Chernobyl, there had only been one incident at the entire nuclear facility. In the last 10 months alone, there had been 9 at Indian Point.
In 2009, physicist Joseph Mangano dropped a bomb. His report, based on CDC data, revealed that areas around Indian Point have become something of a cancer cluster, with unusually high rates of the disease, in excess of 20,000 cases over 15 years. Environmental groups say that it's not a matter of if another incident happens, but when.
De nuevo, la lógica capitalista escoge el dinero por encima de la vida humana. Y en la ciudad de Flint, Michigan, hay una grave crisis de agua contaminada. Pues en esa ciudad de más de 100,000 habitantes, hubo una decisión ya consciente del gobernador en el año 2014 de cambiar el suministro de agua para una fuente de agua contaminada envenenada. Justamente la decisión fue tomada para bajar el presupuesto, cambiar el suministro de agua a Flint de lo que venía del lago Hurón, que era más costoso, al río Flint, ahí cerca de la ciudad. Para los residentes, cuando se enteraron de esa decisión, pensaban que era una broma, ya que ese río era conocido por ser contaminado. Luego comenzaron las quejas sobre el color del agua, que salía agua potable, marrón, y el olor feo que tenía ese agua. Y después se descubrió que el agua estaba lleno de plomo, algo que causa daños cerebrales en los niños y otras enfermedades más. Lo peor de toda esa situación de agua contaminado en Flint, Michigan, es que el suministro de ese agua no era gratis. Los residentes estaban pagando por ese agua contaminado, pagando para envenenarse, sin otras opciones y bajo el engaño del Estado. Y toda esta situación lamentable se hubiese evitado si el Estado simplemente hubiera pagado para limpiar el plomo de ese agua. Pero no lo hizo porque para ellos el dinero era más importante que la gente.
Our basic rights to exist rely on what we are able to eat, drink, and breathe. If any of these three components are compromised, then so is our health. Then why are there so many toxins in our air, water, and food supplies? We are all economic slaves to a broken system of fiat currency. We work 40 plus hours a week, 50 plus weeks a year, until we're old enough to retire, but are too elderly to fully enjoy our golden years. The best years of our lives were given to the same global corporations who have kept us financially enslaved. While water is the world's most precious commodity, it is also a basic right for all of humanity. Our planet is covered with more than 2/3 of it being water, but fresh water is only about 2.5% of it, while the rest is salt water. In some areas of the United States, such as Utah, Washington, or Colorado, it is illegal to trap your own rainwater or to divert water from a stream or river into a holding reservoir, while drilling for your own water supply through the local aquifer would be preferred. Most people are reliant upon city drinking water, which does not filter out many of the pharmaceuticals that are in it through urination and limited filtering processes, along with the addition of fluoride to the drinking water in some countries. In an article published by the Associated Press, it was stated that pharmaceuticals have been found in 24 metropolitan cities, including antidepressant medications, anti-seizure medications, anti-inflammatory medications, painkillers, and even caffeine. Additionally, the Associated Press revealed that the drinking water of at least 41 million people in the United States is contaminated with pharmaceutical drugs. A study by the U.S. Geological Survey, published in the journal Scientific Reports, found that birth control drugs were found in unfiltered tap water, which could cause a possible widespread infertility epidemic in the coming years. Big Pharma is not in the business of finding cures because there is no money to be made without repeat business through prescriptions that constantly need to be refilled. A Russian study entitled "The Effect of Small Quantities of Fluorine on the Human Body" concluded that low concentrations of fluorine in drinking water, 1.5 milligrams per liter, cause changes to developing tissues and harms the development of higher neural activity in humans and animals. Fluoride is a poisonous waste that is so toxic that it cannot be directly dumped into the ocean or any water supply. The addition of fluoride to the water supply correlated directly with the number of stillbirths, mongoloid children, brittle teeth and enlarged dental root structures, adverse spinal conditions, osteomalacia, which is the softening of bones, and osteoporosis, which is abnormally porous and spaced structure inside of bone, in the medicated population as opposed to controlled populations that were unmedicated. 1977, the Congressional Subcommittee on Intergovernmental Relations convenes 2 full congressional hearings on the subject of fluorides. During the hearing, it was proven that 1. The scientific efforts of those promoting fluoridation were fraudulent, and 2. Other existing studies proved beyond a doubt that approximately 10,000 excess cancer deaths per year could be attributed to fluoridation in the United States. 1979. On November 11th, up to 50 parts per million fluoride was dumped into the Annapolis, Maryland water supply, resulting in the poisoning of 50,000 people. Many died of heart failure during the week following the spill. In the journal Clinical Toxicology of Commercial Products, 5th edition, 1984, it is stated that there is not a single scientific or laboratory study from anywhere in the world which proves that fluoridation reduces tooth decay in humans. There are, however, hundreds of published scientific papers which show that water fluoridation is dangerous to human, animal, plant, and aquatic life, which is no surprise since fluoride is more toxic than lead and only marginally less so than arsenic. Robert Carton, Ph.D., formerly president of the Union of Governmental Scientists, working at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, said, "Water fluoridation is the greatest case of scientific fraud of this century, if not of all time." Bottled water isn't necessarily the answer because it has its own issues. The NRDC found that 1/4 of bottled water is actually just tap water, with or without extra filtration. FDA rules allows bottlers to label their water spring water, even though it may be treated with chemicals, and there's no guarantee that the spring itself is a pure one. In the upcoming years, water could become more precious than gold if we cannot find a way to provide the world with clean drinking water. In Kenya, a massive underground lake was found that could supply the country with fresh water for up to 70 years. In an article published in Science magazine, a huge underground reservoir was recently discovered 400 miles below the Earth's surface that contains 3 times as much water as all of our oceans combined. So between the aquifers, lakes, and reservoirs that are located beneath the Earth's surface, along with the newly discovered invention of converting salt water into drinking water, there should be no excuse as to why clean drinking water cannot be enjoyed by everyone on this planet.
Für mich ist diese Obergrenze von 5.000 € ein Einstieg in eine Entwicklung, die letztendlich zu einem Bargeldverbot führt. Weil nur dann macht es Sinn. Also wenn man damit erreichen will, dass zum Beispiel, wenn eine Bank wieder in Schieflage gerät, es zu keinen Banken rankommt, dann muss man das Bargeld abschaffen. Denn wenn Sie kein Bargeld bei der Bank bekommen, dann macht es auch wenig Sinn zu rennen. Insofern ist das meines Erachtens nur ein Einstieg, der noch flankiert wird von einer anderen Maßnahme, nämlich der geplanten Abschaffung des 500-Euro-Scheins. Also das wird vermutlich schon relativ schnell der Fall sein, weil es hierzu nur eines einstimmigen Beschlusses bedarf des EZB-Rates. Dahinter steckt meines Erachtens die Furcht, es könnte zu einer neuen Finanzkrise kommen. Wir haben seit Anfang des Jahres eine hochvolatile und hochnervöse Börse. Das heißt, die Regierungen und vor allen Dingen die Notenbanken, die ja ihr Pulver verschossen haben mit der Nullzinspolitik, die brauchen ein anderes Instrumentarium, um darauf reagieren zu können. Und das ist der Negativzins. Negativzins hauptsächlich für Sparer, für private Sparer, setzt allerdings voraus, dass sie das Bargeld abschaffen oder streng limitieren. Wenn Sie heute das Geld abheben, und heute können Sie ja noch, es gibt ja noch keine Restriktion, Tausende von Euro abheben und zu Hause aufbewahren. Aber wo wollen Sie das sicher aufbewahren? Und wenn Sie nachher noch nicht mal mehr 500-Euro-Scheine haben, sondern Ihr ganzes Guthaben in 50er oder in 100er aufbewahren wollen, dann wird sich mancher überlegen, wo packe ich das hin, wo ist das sicher verwahrt? Die Idee, die dahinter steckt, ist ja eigentlich eine andere. Die Leute sollen gezwungen werden, mehr zu konsumieren, mehr Geld auszugeben, um hier die lahmende Konjunktur anzuschieben. Und deshalb haben wir auch die Tatsache festzustellen, dass in den Ländern, in denen die Konjunktur lahmt, hauptsächlich Frankreich, der stärkste Druck vorhanden ist, eine europaweite Bargeldlimitierung einzuführen. Schon heute ist es so, wenn Sie ein Sparbuch haben oder ein Tagesgeldkonto haben, Sie bekommen ja faktisch 0 Zinsen. Das heißt, wir haben heute schon einen realen Negativzins. Real bedeutet also, Sie bekommen vielleicht noch 0,1, 0,2%. Wenn Sie dann aber die Inflationsrate abziehen, sind Sie auch schon im negativen Terrain. Die langfristigen Folgen sind sicherlich verheerend.
China probably is slowing down. They've been trying to slow things down and cool many things off. So yes, I can certainly feel it when I'm there. But is China about to fall into the sea? I don't think so. It may have a slowdown. The anomaly, Sean, is that China has not had a recession for many, many, many years. That's strange. They're overdue, and maybe they'll have one. Back in 2008, when the world had a problem, China spent a lot of money. It had saved a lot of money for a rainy day. It started raining. They started spending. But they spent it on infrastructure, schools, things to increase future productivity and competitiveness. We in America didn't have money saved for a rainy day, but we borrowed and spent a lot. And we spent it on keeping bureaucrats in their jobs. That's not doing much for future competitiveness, I assure you. We're not just the biggest debtor in the world, we're the biggest debtor in the history of the world. No one has ever been in debt like we are, but that's because we can print all this money because the dollar's reserve currency at the moment. How much longer can it happen? I don't know. History is full of countries that have gotten overextended military-wise and otherwise. We certainly are overextended. We love to go to war, apparently, with just about anybody we can find. But that has ended many, many other successful empires and countries. I'm afraid it will end us too.
Soll Deutschland seine Grenzen gegen Zuwanderung selbstermächtigter Art schützen oder nicht? Auf wie viele Menschen können wir die Solidarität dieses Landes ausdehnen? Und wer aller soll in welcher Frist, zu welchen Bedingungen Deutsche sein? Weil diese Fragen im Moment in Deutschland keine klaren Antworten haben, polarisiert sich die Gesellschaft. Wir laufen in gewaltige Verteilungskonflikte hinein. Von der 1 Million Zuwanderer, die im letzten Jahr gekommen sind, wird es so sein, nach Angaben des Bundesarbeitsministeriums, dass wahrscheinlich die Hälfte auf Dauer keinen Zugang zum deutschen Arbeitsmarkt findet. Und das heißt, Hunderttausende werden auf Dauer aus dem deutschen Sozialetat zu finanzieren sein. Wir werden die schlimmste aller denkbaren Kombinationen haben, nämlich soziale Verteilungskonflikte, verbinden sich mit ethnischen Konflikten und mit kulturellen Konflikten. Und ob unsere liberale Gesellschaft mit diesen Schwierigkeiten so umgehen kann, dass ihr liberaler Charakter bewahrt wird, das ist eine Frage, die viele umtreibt.
That it is like a room of dominoes in a line, and you push one domino down and that creates the next domino to fall. So we've had this situation in the Middle East where we've had all this bombing and destruction and chaos and catastrophe externally created by the United States, NATO, Britain. And this has forced large numbers of people to leave. And this wave into Europe has of genuine people who deserve our help because of the situation that the West has put them in, has been joined by vast numbers of other people who are not refugees but are seeking to get into Europe. And it's being allowed to happen, and it's been long planned for this reason. They want a world government, a world central bank, world army, and world currency, etc. And under the world government, they want these super states. They want the European Union, of course, the American Union, the Pacific Union, all these super states under the world government. And these super states are designed not to be countries any longer, but to be broken up into regions, subordinate regions that are easy to control. The biggest resistance to the breakup and ending of sovereignty is a sense of national identity, a sense of distinct culture. People have been taken aback, not least Germans, at what Chancellor Merkel was doing. When this great flood of migrants began, she opened the doors to Germany without any question, without any policy, without anything. What she's doing is this. Chancellor Merkel is a 100% owned and willingly owned asset of this hidden hand. And the reason that she's done what she's done is because the agenda demanded it. They know that certain things are going to happen, because if you get a large number of people into any other, from one culture into another, then you're going to have some very nice people and you're going to have some very unnice people. That's what happens. And as things happen, and we're seeing some of them now, that the hidden hand knew would happen, you're obviously going to get an angry reaction from the population, the German population, and you're going to create conflict, you're going to create resentment, and you're going to create divide and rule conflict in Europe between those who are coming in and those that are already there. And some of the decent people in both groups are going to be caught up in the crossfire. If you're challenging the official narrative, you're challenging the lie on which the transformation of society is being justified. This is what's happening, and people should realize this. It's a house of cards because A, it's based on lies, and B, it's based on a programmed population. Once the people start to break out of what I call phantom self and start to see beyond it, start to realize it's a program and they've been programmed and their perception of everything has actually been downloaded so that they'll see the world the way that the agenda demands, once they start to connect the dots and see that actually it's not all random, it's all connected, then the house of cards starts to fall, because although it seems so powerful and all-powerful, it ain't.
Was ich vermeiden möchte, ist diese Schwarz-Weiß-Malerei, die bei uns betrieben wird, dass die Russen immer das Schlechte tun, das Negative, und der Westen tut immer das Gute. Sehen Sie, ich will das an einem Beispiel erläutern. Den Russen wird vorgeworfen, dass sie auch die liberalen Kräfte bombardieren. Das tun sie sicherlich auch. Das kann man ja nicht leugnen. Das sehen wir jetzt ja auch in Aleppo. Aber die Türken bombardieren ja zum Beispiel auch die Kurden. Und die Kurden sind sehr aktiv im Kampf, wahrscheinlich die aktivste Gruppe überhaupt im Kampf gegen den IS. Das wird bei uns nicht kritisiert. Ich plädiere dafür, sehr sorgfältig zu sehen, was dort geschieht, die Motivation dahinter, die Strategie, und sich auch zu überlegen, was das am Ende bedeuten könnte.
Also, was mir auffällt, seit Russen anfangen zu bombardieren, zählen wir zivile Opfer. Vorher nennt man das Kollateralschaden. Aber ich glaube, das Thema ist so wichtig, so gefährlich und so heikel, dass wir, die wir hier sitzen, Argumente und Gedankengänge auf den Tisch bringen müssen, damit die Zuschauer das als Basis nehmen können, um sich eine eigene Meinung zu bilden.
This resolution is a total rewrite of the War Powers Clause of the United States Constitution. Let's be clear about that. It is essentially a declaration of international martial law, a sweeping transfer of military power to the president that will allow him or her to send U.S. troops almost anywhere in the world for almost any reason with absolutely no limitations.
NATO and the United States were quadrupling their military forces on Russia's borders, and that is now underway. This is the first time since the German invasion that so much Western power, that any Western power, has been amassed on Russia's borders. And in Russia, that rings a historical bell, invasion. Some people in Turkey, whoever's controlling the political situation, is trying to provoke a war with Russia, in order, because Turkey is a member of NATO, to draw NATO into a war with Russia. Last week, officially, the American Secretary of State, Ash Carter, announced that Russia is the number one enemy of the United States, the greatest threat to the United States in the entire world. He then went on to rank the others. I forget the exact order, but I believe it was China after Russia, North Korea after China, and last, the Islamic State. And that explains some of this demonization of Putin, of accusing him of killing people and secretly stolen $4 billion and all this stuff that's coming out of Washington. And that these people, as I see it, are putting this jihad against Putin. Clearly they want regime change in Russia above America's national interest. And all this accompanied by a propaganda war coming. I mean, the Russians, of course, do propaganda. Of course they do. Everybody does propaganda. But the volume and the distortion and the lack of any respect for facts in what's pouring out of American publications against Russia, let us imagine, as these regime changers in our country, and not only, want, that Putin falls, Russia falls into anarchy, the largest territorial country in the world, with 88 different provinces, stretching from Europe to the Arctic, and laden with every known manner of weapon of mass destruction. Not only nuclear weapons, but biological and chemical weapons, and nuclear reactors galore. Imagine that happened. No one in the world would be safe. It would become a wallmark for every terrorist in search of a weapon of mass destruction. Therefore, I say that those people in the United States who are promoting that regime change policy in Russia are unfit to hold office because they're endangering all of us. They're endangering the world. But that isn't going to happen. There are three possibilities that are there on the table if there was a leader to pick them up. One is Ukraine. The road to a negotiated settlement of the Ukrainian crisis that would keep the rebel territories in Ukraine, which is vital, a coalition between the United States and Russia against the Islamic State in Syria. And the other thing is, we have below the radar, you and I mentioned it elliptically, a new nuclear arms race.
Right.
And it's got to stop. Leave aside getting rid of nuclear weapons. You know, John, they invented leadership for a purpose. And that is to do what is not easy to do, to see farther than the rest of us see. What was it Churchill once said? A politician thinks about today, a statesman thinks about tomorrow. We do not have, on the political landscape in the United States today, such a person in power or anywhere near power, so far as I can see. You and I had thought that Mrs. Merkel might be such a person. She has crumbled. We thought that maybe Hollande was rising after Paris to try to play that role, but France simply lacks the stature in world affairs. The reality is that the most consequential, for better or worse, statesman of the 21st century sits in the Kremlin. Whatever you want to call him, he is the consequential statesman, and we need a consequential statesman to act at a minimum on these three perilous fronts where agreement is possible, but where the will is lacking.
sobald wir uns bewegen in der Gesellschaft, ja, sind wir sozusagen transparent, hinterlassen Datenspuren, die dann ausgelesen werden können. Es gibt diesen schönen Ausdruck im Englischen, wir seien alle leaking Data Container. Also wir sind löchrige Datenbehälter, die immer eine Spur hinterlassen. Wenn Sie heute auf die Straße gehen, sind Sie auf der Videokamera, wenn Sie Ihre Bankomatkarte benutzen, wenn Sie eine Fahrkarte kaufen, wenn Sie irgendwo im Restaurant zahlen, wenn Sie ein Auto mieten. Und da rede ich jetzt noch gar nicht von Search Engines wie Google, sondern einfach, wenn Sie Ihre alltäglichen Verrichtungen machen, im Supermarkt mit Ihrer Bonuskarte, da sich die Punkte draufschreiben lassen. Sie hinterlassen Spuren und man kann, wenn man will, im Prinzip von ihnen ein extrem komplexes und auch sehr realistisches, auf die Person bezogenes Profil erstellen. Also insofern ist Privatsphäre vielleicht gerade noch das, was in meinen 4 Wänden, wenn ich alle Fernseher und alle Computer ausschalte. Wir sind technosoziale Hybride. Ne? Wenn Ihr Handy weg ist, sind Sie nur mehr ein halber Mensch. Wenn in Ihrem Büro der Computer ausfällt, können Sie nicht mehr arbeiten, machen Sie den Laden zu. Und das heißt, unsere Existenz auf einer ganz trivialen Ebene ist verwoben mit ganz vielen technischen Systemen. Wir sind verdrahtet. Ja? Und diese Verdrahtung ist ein Teil unserer ganz trivialen alltäglichen Existenz. Und also es gibt eine ganze Reihe von Problemen, wo man sagen kann, seid vorsichtig, schaut auch auf die staatliche Überwachung und schaut, dass das alles im Rahmen des gesetzlich Vorgeschriebenen bleibt. Alles richtig. Ist eine Front, an der man sozusagen kämpfen sollte, auch für Bürgerrechte und Grundrechte. Aber die eigentlich unter Datenschutz- und Privatsphären-Gesichtspunkten gefährlichere und wichtigere Front ist die der alltäglichen Nutzung von Computern für Zwecke und also dann dahinter stehend die großen Unternehmen, die damit dann ihre Geschäfte betreiben.
Is the CCTV capital of the world. There's thought to be around 1 camera for every 30 Brits. But most of those are privately owned and just sit there collecting footage. What if they could talk to each other to recognize suspect faces?
Your face be scanned, run through a database without your knowledge, without your consent, and it's assumed that people won't mind proving their innocence. It basically throws the due process of law overboard. It flips the presumption of innocence, and it has a huge impact on society as a whole.
There is no specific legislation to regulate such a system, but police forces across Britain have been applauding it for crime reduction. The government still wants to push through its surveillance legislation, nicknamed the Snoopers Charter. The Investigatory Powers Bill, if passed, would legitimise bulk collection of data on an unprecedented scale, apparently to catch terrorists. But that's an approach that's been likened to looking for a needle in a haystack.
We are 5 minutes to midnight from total surveillance of everything we do. The surveillance bill is mass surveillance. The bulk collection is where the bad news is. Everything you do on the web, the whole lot, every phone call you make, every email you send, everything will be collected and put in the database. Everybody should be concerned, because this really is an attempt by the bureaucracy to database the lot of us. So the presumption of innocence is wiped out. and the assumption of guilt is built in.
The Brazilian researchers have, so to speak, gone back into their work, and now they're really looking at it. And now they are saying that they have confirmed 404 cases of microcephaly in the whole country of Brazil, down from 4,000. But of those 404, you know, it could be, and they're saying this, some other kind of central nervous system impairment. So even that figure is dubious, but let's accept it. Then they are saying that of those 404, they have found, quote, a relationship to the Zika virus in 17 cases. So what we have here is nothing. In other words, there was no reason to hype this as an epidemic in the first place because of the numbers of cases, and there is no connection to the Zika virus. So they are saying 17 cases out of 404. That, in fact, is counter evidence. That is evidence that the virus is not causing this condition. And if you read the literature, the conventional medical literature on microcephaly, it's very clear that any insult to the fetal developing brain in pregnancy can cause microcephaly. The literature is also very clear that every year in the United States, there are 25,000 cases of microcephaly. So wait a minute, you know, we're comparing here year after year, 25,000 in the U.S., nobody raises a peep. Now we're looking at 404 probable cases of microcephaly in Brazil with a population of 200 million. No connection to the virus, and we're told this is a worldwide epidemic.
In the outbreak of this latest Zika craze, of course, what is the first reaction that we got a couple of weeks ago was the U.S. is now scrambling to develop a new vaccine for Zika. Obviously, there is a profit motive here. We can speculate about whether that's connected directly to this or whether they're piggybacking on the hype. But at any rate, it seems like there's a direct relation between these types of events and the vaccine industry, isn't there?
The virus becomes the cover story. This is what we're putting out here, and it sells. I mean, it's the biggest selling cover story in the world as far as I'm concerned. It works fantastically. People are afraid. They're scared. You can create fear with talk about a virus. So therefore, that obscures why people are actually getting sick and dying from whatever the condition is. And we can go into motives and who's doing it and why, but I mean, that is a pattern. They tell you there's an epidemic. They tell you the cause. Please stop. Show me there's an epidemic. Show me you know there's a cause and how you know it before we go further, before we say I'm accepting the premises, I'm accepting the story, and now I'm going to find alternative explanations based on my acceptance of the initial story. Question everything down to the bottom.
gustaría hacer hincapié en que las llamadas plagas, algo que no sé a ustedes, pero a mí me recuerda al Antiguo Testamento, pero también al Apocalipsis, son la excusa perfecta para establecer medidas estratégicas o acciones políticas más que discutibles. En unos meses se celebran las Olimpiadas de verano en Río de Janeiro y ya hay voces de alarma sobre la asistencia de público. El presidente del Comité Olímpico Internacional confía en que la epidemia no afecte al desarrollo de los Juegos e incluso ha asegurado que se van a poner más medios en la lucha, en la batalla, en la guerra contra el Zika. Como lo escuchan, términos bélicos, guerra, batalla, que enfatizan o yo creo que pretenden insuflarnos aún más la sensación de que estamos ante un enemigo terrible.
...2015 is behind us, but 2016 is here, man, and we're moving into the future. You know, how does humanity, the population of this beautiful planet, deal with all of this negativity that seems like it's raining down on us from all directions?
we here on Earth tend to be extremely plagued by fear and anxiety. And the cabal, the Illuminati, whatever you want to call them, they don't want healthy people. They don't want people to feel good. They don't want people laughing. They want everybody walking around with earbuds in their ear and their eyes in a phone. The training of the spiritual discipline of fearlessness, I think, is one of the final stages of initiation that very, very few people ever actually make it to. Don't forget about the fact there are spiritual forces for the positive working that are vastly more effective at bringing us through this whole transition safely than we could ever do with any type of grassroots campaign on the internet or with militia people occupying federal buildings or any of that kind of stuff. We do require divine intervention to get through this, because when you understand how evil the cabal is and how wide its scope is, there is no possible way to stand up to that military-industrial complex. There is only the possibility of collaboration with the greater team that's out there. Then you have to realize, oh shit, they've lied to me. I didn't know that there were extraterrestrials. These people have not allowed us to know the truth about that we are not alone. But the main reason why they don't want us to know is that these people are our allies that are here to help us. That's why UFOs are seen over nuclear missile installations. They wanted a nuclear war. They wanted those missiles to go up because they have the Taj Mahal right under our feet. They have an awesome, awesome underground civilization. They're going to be fine. If they blew up the surface of the planet, they're fine. They don't have anything to worry about, except we're living in a maze. We're living in a hologram. There are people managing this hologram, and the negatives are not any more powerful by design than what we authorize them to be by the amount of negativity in our own private lives. So as we heal our private lives, we're holographically improving the collective. And this also works with geophysics. Why hasn't California had the big one? There's so many people here who are doing positive work on themselves that they're actively wicking out the stress from the earth. But unfortunately, what's one of the things that I'm almost entirely positive they're responsible for, that they did get to work? This methane disaster right next to LA right now. It's not an accident. So we do have a negative force, but you got to remember there's positive forces that have come in that are cleaning up the mess for us. And what they need us to do primarily is to be more peaceful, more loving, more harmonious. And when we do that, the cabal is going to lose their grip more and more. And it does appear that everything that's going on right now is leading up to a profoundly dramatic public defeat of the cabal. So when you have enough people who are intelligent and trained and motivated, there's any number of ways in which when the cabal tries to destabilize our economy, that it will almost immediately turn into something more organized. But there's going to be an avalanche, and that happens first. There is a massive effort underway for the cabal to try to flee right now to South America. They're going to Argentina, they're going to Chile, they're going to Ecuador, and they're going to Brazil. And they've got all these compounds and all this land down there, but the Alliance already has boots on the ground watching where these people are going, what they're building, what they're doing, because they know they're done. Putin has outmastered them in every possible way in this global chess game. And it's not just Putin, it's all the people working with him and behind him in this greater Earth Alliance and their allies that are not people here on Earth. The way that these higher beings, like the Sphere Being Alliance, are orchestrating this is the cabal is completely hog-tied. They cannot crash the whole system. They are being forced to be exposed week after week, month after month, year after year. Once you really get the nature of cosmic awareness and you start to embody that awareness in your daily life, and that act is so beneficial to the earth that even getting part of the way there as a group, a small group of people, they're choosing, I'm going to decide today to do something to create value for myself and for others. That has so much power that these negative groups, they just wither like vampires in the sunlight when you do that.
first thing is this. The work showed that your mind's perception of the world changes your biology, the chemistry of your body, which changes your cells. And I said, okay, so if you control how your mind operates, then you can control your chemistry. But then here's where the problem comes from. There's two parts to the mind. The conscious mind, which has your personal identity, your spirit, your source attached with it, is a creative mind. The conscious mind can see into the future, can review the past, solve problems. The subconscious mind, the other mind, is more of a habit mind. That's when you learn how to do something, and once you learn how to do it, you don't have to think about it, it's automatic. Science has now revealed that we only run our lives with our conscious mind at most about 5% of the time.
So we're running on these subconscious programs?
95% of the time. Okay. All of us got programming, and all of us operate with these programs, and we don't even see we're doing it, that we even, when told we're doing it, will deny that we do these behaviors because we don't even see when we're doing it. That's why it's called subconscious, below conscious. If you can stay conscious, be present, and when those negative thoughts come in our head, and psychologists tell us 70% of the time, the thoughts that are going through our head are negative and redundant, so the same negative thoughts are going through. If you could stop those thoughts, if you could hear them as they come through, like, oh, that's not going to work, or this will never happen, those kind of thoughts. If you can hear them and stop them consciously, say, no, change the belief right there, just give the more positive thing. As you repeat this more frequently and you keep repeating it, the subconscious mind begins to learn. Well, that's what we're finding out. Our mind is the government. And when we entertain harmony and the right living in balance with nature and with each other, then we provide our 50 trillion cells with very life-supporting information and chemistry.
So harmony means giving the body good food?
Yes.
Not being stressed out?
Absolutely.
Living in a happy environment?
Yes. The issue is, how can you survive in this world? And the answer is you must essentially detach yourself from this field around you, not be taken in by the stories, not buy into the fear, not to buy into the threats on our existence. And the more conscious you become, the less you are affected by the outside fields. And so this rising consciousness that we're seeing is the evolution of humanity to rise above the noise of the background. And the reality is, we are moving in that direction right now. Day by day, more people are taking back the power of saying, I'm not buying your belief.
You have to be consciously stand apart, don't you?
Yes.
Say, I'm not going to be part of this.
Right. And it's interesting because a lot of people say, well, I'm going to go in there and fight that system. And I go, you know, that's not really good either, because if you're fighting the system, then you're contributing energy, whether it's pro or con, to that system. The way to fight the system is not to be part of the system. I trust the people to take over the leadership of this world, and that the structure that is actually in a state of collapse. When it collapses, this will be our opportunity to evolve. It's really a change in the energy fields of the Earth, because the Earth is changing its position in relationship to the Milky Way. So basically, the energy that comes from all the stars and the sun especially influence who we are. When we change our positions in the relationship to the field, we change our response, because we evolved in the field of energy, and when the field of energy changes, so do we.